Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new, my name is Andrea. I really appreciate you stopping by and watching one of my videos. I love eyeshadow palettes. They're one of my favorite things, and today I wanted to do an updated video sharing all of my neutral eyeshadow palette recommendations. I did a video like this back in the fall, but since then I have tried out some other neutral palettes, so I wanted to update you and let you know which ones I think are great. Whether you are on a budget and you're looking for a really nice option from the drugstore, or you want to splurge and find a high-end palette that's worth the money, I think I've got you guys covered in today's video. I'll list everything that I talk about in the description box below. I tried to pick like true neutral palettes and not neutral palettes with pops of colors. So there is a range including warm tones and cooler tone shadows, but I hope today's video is helpful. Let's jump into it, and I think I'll just jump back and forth between like high-end and drugstore options. I picked up the Natasha Denona Mini Nude palette a few months ago, and it's definitely become a staple for me. I've used this one so much. This is such a good palette for day-to-day wear because it just makes eyeshadow very simple. So if you are a beginner or you don't want to put a ton of thought and effort into your eyeshadow look, but you still like to wear eyeshadow, this is the palette for you. It comes with 2 matte shadows, 3 shimmers, so you can use the mattes in the crease, take any shimmer, place it all over the lid, or layer them together, and you're good to go. I can get a complete look in just a few minutes, so this one really is perfect. It's also a good introduction into Natasha Denona because the formula is really nice. So it's a good way to try it out and see if you like the formula before committing to a larger, more expensive palette, and it really is perfect for everyday wear, or if you want to do something a little bit more smoky and dramatic. So I definitely recommend checking this one out. If you do like the idea of a smaller palette, but you're looking for an affordable option, these are $10. These are from ColourPop, and they come with 4 different shadows. They have a few different options. They have some neutral ones, some colorful ones. 2 of my favorites are Citrus Fizz, which is kind of like a lighter toned neutral quad, and then also Sparkler, which is a deeper smoky quad. These are perfect for everyday wear because they are so blendable. They're pretty powdery, so just keep that in mind. If you hate powdery shadows, I would skip over them, but because they are a little bit more powdery, they're extra blendable. So the matte shadows blend out in seconds, and then I just take my finger and apply the shimmers all over the lid. And what's nice is you can create like a 2 eyeshadow look, or you can reach into all 4 and do something a little bit more intense, but even if you do that, it's still not going to take you a lot of effort or time to create a complete look. That looks like you put more effort in than you actually did. I would say the shimmers in here are a little bit more intense. They're not toned down shimmers, so if you like more of a subtle shimmer look, you might want to skip over these, but if you're looking for a fun eyeshadow look with minimal effort, these are perfect. Now, if shimmers aren't your thing and you just like matte shadows, I think you'll really appreciate this palette from Makeup by Mario. It is the Master Mattes eyeshadow palette. This one comes with 12 different matte shadows, and it is a really good staple palette to have in your collection. Now, at this point, you might have a lot of matte shadows and you might not feel like you need something like this, but I know there are people who don't like to wear shimmer for whatever reason, and if that's the case, it might be worth investing in a palette like this because you'll probably get a ton of use out of it, especially if you don't wear colorful shadow and you just wear neutral shadows. The creator of Makeup by Mario is obviously a very talented, well-known makeup artist, and I feel like because of that, the colors in here are so perfect for everyday wear because you can contour the eye, you can do something really smoky, but they all look so good. And I've seen videos with people who have different skin tones using this, and I feel like a lot of people do enjoy it for day-to-day wear. So this one might be a good option for you. The matte formula is very blendable. It's not overly powdery, and you can build it up or you can go in with a light hand. So again, I think it is like a day-to-day or beginner-friendly palette that's not too over the top. Now, if you're looking for a good everyday palette that's not going to break the bank, I definitely recommend Profusion. They have a lot of different options. I believe they actually have quads on their website, so if you like a smaller palette, that's an option. They also have really large palettes, and throughout the years, I've tried some of their palettes, and they all perform pretty consistently, but lately I've just been enjoying their 10-pan palettes because I feel like this is a large enough size that you can get a variety of looks, but it's not overwhelming. A really good option for day-to-day wear if you like neutrals is the Classics palette. This one comes with 6 shimmers and 4 matte shadows. The matte shadows are very blendable, they're buildable, so they're going to start off a little bit softer and then you can layer them up, but I really like the shimmers in this palette because they're not over the top. I am a fan of like over the top intense shimmers, but sometimes I want something a little bit more toned down, and these almost have more of like a soft satin effect. Now, if you want to splurge and you're trying to decide which high-end neutral palette is worth the money, I have to say I'm really impressed by the Patrick Ta palette. This one is gorgeous. And when I saw this online, I just wasn't convinced that it would be worth the price tag, because for me, I have a lot of neutral palettes in my collection, but sometimes I'm willing to spend a little bit more if it's a palette I know that I will use super often. I can definitely say this is a palette that I will end up using quite a bit. The matte shadows in here are so good. They're buttery and blendable and smooth. I do have this palette on my eyes today. I was so impressed by the matte shadows the first time that I tried them. They're a little bit powdery, but they have amazing pigmentation, but they also blend out well. Sometimes when a shadow is super pigmented, it doesn't blend out well. It looks patchy, or you like tap your brush on your eye and the pigment stays in that place. That's just not the case with this palette. They blend seamlessly. They look flawless on the skin. They don't enhance texture, so if you deal with a lot of texture issues, that might be a pro for you. The shimmers in here are very interesting. Now, there are some different textures going on, so if you like more of a natural satin shimmer, you might want to skip over these, because some of these are very textured. They have like a little bit of grittiness to them, and then some are a little bit more smooth. Like today I have the deeper brown shimmer all over the lid, and then I took one of the lighter shimmers and just kind of tapped it all over the center for more of like that almost glittery finish, and I love it. This also comes with 2 cream shadows as well. Now, this is an expensive palette. I did get mine on sale. I got 15% off because I signed up for the email list and got a coupon code. So I do think it's worth the money, but again, there are some different shimmer textures in here. I think most people will love the matte formula, but if you aren't sure if the shimmer formula will work for you, maybe think about it a little bit before you spend the money on it. It also comes with 2 cream shadows, so if you don't use them, take that into account too. Now, if you like really fun shimmers like I do, I think you'll like this one from LA Girl. This one is under $10. It's the Keep It Playful palette. Now, this is what I would consider to be like more of a colorful neutral palette. It's definitely a neutral palette, but it does have some of those like orangey red tones that can pull a little bit more colorful depending on what you typically go for. The matte shadows in here are nice. They're definitely blendable and smooth, but the shimmers are amazing. They look like high-end shimmers on the eyes. They feel like high-end shimmers. There are some different textures in here, so you get like a true metallic, a true satin, and then you get a textured foil, and I've just had so much fun with this palette. So I think if you're looking for like an elevated neutral look, but you don't want to spend the money on Patrick Ta, this one could be a good alternative. I wouldn't say the formulas are the same, but I do think they give like a similar effect on the eyes where you can layer different textures to get a different kind of look. So this is one that I have been enjoying a lot. I wanted to mention these 2 palettes together. These are both from Natasha Denona. Now, Natasha Denona is more of an expensive high-end brand as well, but I think in terms of neutral palettes that I've tried, these are like some of my top palettes that are worth the high-end price tag if I'm thinking about like more expensive high-end makeup that's actually worth the money, because I have gotten so much use out of both of these. So the first one is the bronze palette. This is actually just my #1 palette of all time. I would use it every single day if I could, and I do use it quite a bit, but I do like other formulas and other palettes too. It's just such a good palette. The color story is perfect. The formula is amazing. Now, obviously this one is just going to be for you if you like warm toned eyeshadow. You can get like the most perfect golden bronzy look. You can get something a little bit more red toned. Typically I get more of a medium eyeshadow look with this. I can get something a little bit softer and more natural, and I can go slightly smokier, but in general, you kind of get like more of that mid-toned look. I think the quality is so good. I get a flawless look every single time, and when I'm not sure what to do with my makeup, or I just don't want to put a lot of effort into my makeup, but I still want it to look good, this is the palette that I reach for every single time. It really is like my #1 palette of all time. Definitely one. Well, I guess that would make it my #1 neutral palette too. Kind of similar to the LA Girl palette, it's more of like a colorful neutral palette. It has like those warm bronzy shades, some like orangey golds, but it really is such a pretty palette. I don't have anything bad to say about it. I also love the Natasha Denona Glam Palette. This one is a cool toned palette. It's very different than the bronze palette. The only thing they really have in common is the fact that they're both a little bit more neutral than colorful, but I find that I get a lot of use out of this one too, especially when I want to create just like an easy cool toned look. This one also has some shadows that are neutral in color, but also neutral in undertone. So it really is a palette that comes in handy quite a bit. You can use it on its own to create looks, or you can pull it in when you're doing another look with a different palette. Like typically I'll pull this in when I'm doing a really colorful look too, just because I feel like the shades in here can sometimes balance out really colorful palettes. So again, one of my favorites. I think these are worth the money, but the Sephora VIB sale will roll around again in a few months, so it might be worth grabbing them then. Speaking of cool toned palettes, one of my favorite cool toned affordable palettes is this one from ColourPop. I actually have a few of these ColourPop 9 pans, so I'll talk about all three of them right here. But the cool toned one is the That's Taupe palette. I love this one because it's just such a great option that's on the more affordable side. You get 5 matte shadows, 4 shimmers, and you can definitely create something a little bit softer and more natural or do something a little bit more smoky toned. This one also has some pretty like shadows that have almost like a hint of pink and a hint of purple, but they still pull pretty neutral on the eyes. So with 9 shadows, you're able to actually create quite a few different looks just using this palette. If you're someone who is getting into cool tones or you're typically intimidated by them, this one is a great option to start with because it's very easy to use. It's really beginner friendly, but it looks amazing on the eyes every single time. It is one of my favorites for sure. Now, another palette that kind of falls in between like cool and warm is this one from ColourPop as well. This one is the Grandeur Palette. Now upon initial glance, it does look like this has 2 blue shadows in it, but the shimmer is kind of like a blue that mainly shifts brown. When I initially used it, I thought I was going to get a blue look, but it definitely looks brown on the eyes. And then the deeper shade is kind of like a smoky toned black with like a hint of blue. But overall, it is a neutral palette and you're going to get more of a smoky look when you use it. I think that this one is a great option if you're looking for a more dramatic neutral palette. It's just the 9-pan palette, but again, you can create quite a few looks. You can skip the bottom row and get something a little bit softer, or skip the top and get something a little bit more smoky. There's a pressed glitter in here. There's a duochrome. There are some interesting shadows going on in here. So I think that this is like a fun special occasion palette, especially for the holidays or, you know, during the winter time. This is one that I did reach for quite a bit. The last ColourPop 9-pan I wanted to mention is this one. This one is Nude Mood. This one isn't necessarily a super special or unique palette, but this is one that I use quite a bit, especially for like day-to-day wear. I will also use this one to kind of balance out other palettes in my collection. If I have a palette that's just like, you know, super warm toned and I need something a little bit more toned. Okay, that shadow just fell out and broke all over my floor, so I need to pick that up before the pugs step on it or eat it. But anyway, what I was saying is it's just like a good palette to kind of balance out other neutral palettes that maybe pull a little bit too warm toned. And it's just something I find myself reaching for quite a bit. So it is one of my favorites. I don't want to repurchase it just for that shade. I might go into another 9-pan that I don't use as often and just pop another shade in there. I saved these for near the end because I mention them all the time, but I love the e.l.f. bite-sized palettes. These are $3. So if you're someone who doesn't wear eyeshadow every single day, or maybe you rarely wear it, but you still want a formula in your collection for special occasions, these might be a great option for you. I still reach for them over other palettes in my collection because they're very blendable, really easy to work with. And lately I've just been enjoying smaller palettes because you can get a complete look in just a few minutes and it doesn't take a lot of thought or effort. I also use these alongside of other palettes in my collection that are missing these shades. So for example, this one is Truffles. It has like a really deep brown and then also a black. And a lot of my neutral palettes don't have blacks or even deep browns, so that's why I'll reach for this one. I'll also reach for Cream and Sugar when I want more of an intense lid. So I'll take like the gold in combination with the KKW Beauty palette just to amp it up a little bit. And the nice part is these are $3. So that's why I always recommend them, because if you're on a budget and you don't want to spend a lot of money, you can still get a great eyeshadow look for just a few dollars. The last palette I wanted to share is this one from Juvia's Place. This one is the Chocolates palette. Again, it's more of a smoky toned palette. It's a little bit deeper, so if that's what you're looking for, this might be a great option for you. I feel like these mini Juvia's Place palettes are a little bit different than their full-size palettes. Their full-size palettes are super vibrant, really intense, whether you buy a neutral one or a colorful one, but the mini palettes are a little bit more subtle. So that could actually be preferable if you feel like the other Juvia's Place palettes are a little bit too intense for you, but I still think you can get a really beautiful look with this, something a little bit deeper, more smoky toned, so I did want to mention this one as well. Okay, so those are all of the neutral palettes I wanted to talk about in today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll link my other video that I did during the fall in the description box below because I did mention a few that I didn't talk about in today's video. So if you want even more recommendations, I'll link it. It should actually pop up on the screen right now. But I would love to hear which neutral palettes are your favorites, your go-to, so let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys very soon with a new video. Bye.